Hi everyone, and welcome to the sew along video for the cardigan. Because this is a knit garment, we're mainly going to be sewing it with our overlocker. So when you're ready, set up your overlocker with 4 threads of colour that match your fabric and set the stitch width to 6mm, which is 1/4 inch. This pattern is designed to not cut any fabric off with the blade when we're overlocking, so we're just going to use that overlocker blade to trim off any stray threads or any fraying on the fabric. You're also going to need access to either a plain sewing machine with a twin needle to complete the hems, or access to a cover stitcher. So when you're ready, let's get started on the shoulder seams. Take the back piece and open it so that it is right side up. Then take one of the side front pieces and place it right side down to match. We're going to start off by overlocking the shoulder together. So what we need to do is make sure right sides are together and those curves match there. We're going to be sewing this seam across the top. So when you're ready, match the beginning and the end and overlock on the edge of your fabric. And then go ahead and repeat this for the other side, making sure the right sides are together and that the armholes are facing in the correct orientation. So now we're going to work on the center front piece. This is the widest and longest pattern piece. What we need to do is come to the raw edge of one of the shorter ends, and we're going to fold it right side together, and we're going to overlock from the edge here through to a fold position here. Now we need to do the same at the other end, so it's really important that you don't twist this. So find your way to the other end and just repeat what you did. Now turn this piece so it's wrong sides together, which is right side out for both ends. And place that piece away safely. Now we're going to sew our sleeve into position. If you look at the sleeves, on one side we'll have a notch. Now that notch shows us the back of the sleeve, and then at the crown there's another notch here. So this notch here needs to sew into our shoulder line, and there's no notch on the front for this piece. Take your front piece that you've sewn together at the shoulders, so this is the front and this is the back. Then take the sleeve that matches this position. And place it right sides together. So match that sleeve from the underarm point here and start overlocking. find the crown notch and match that to the shoulder seam. Once you have that anchored into position, we need to overlock the sleeve into place. Make sure you have right sides together. When you reach this shoulder position, match the notch at the back and continue overlocking. Now repeat that for the other sleeve. Now, because I'm going to do my hems as a double top stitch on a plain sewing machine, what I'm going to do now is overlock the sleeve hems into position. If you don't need to overlock the hems, you can skip this step. And I'm going to overlock these from the right side. So next we're going to overlock the side seam and the underarm at the same time. So come to the hem area of your sleeve and fold that so that right sides are together. So here's the underarm position here. Match that seam and then overlock from the hem up. So I've started at the sleeve hem here. As you come up the underarm, make sure the seams underneath the arm match. And then what we're going to do is, as we go through the underarm, we're going to pivot and sew that short side seam. So now we're going to repeat this on the other side of the garment. If you are sewing the version with the ties, you will have two pieces that look like this. You have a triangle shape at one end, and then you have a flat piece with some notches at the other end. What we're going to do is take one of your tie pieces and fold it right sides together like so. We're going to overlock through this long edge and across the top of the triangle. We want to leave this edge with the notches free so that we can turn it. So when we reach this end that has the triangle, we're going to go to the end, and you can either overlock straight off the end and cut, leaving a tail, then present it back to your machine and reposition it on the angle. Or if you're good, you can just pivot with that. It's up to you. So when you've done that for one tie, go ahead and do it for the other tie as well, and then turn them so that wrong sides are together and right sides are out. So when you're finished, you're going to have two pieces that look like this. So it's a good idea to now go and give those a press with the iron, and we're going to go ahead and sew these into the garment body. So here is my garment body. This is the back and this is the sleeve. So we haven't yet sewn in the underarm and side seam. So these ties go into the position of the notch here. On this edge that we've left open, there are two notches, and that notch matches with the notch there. Now, because these have an angle on them, just make sure if you put this short side up on one side, you put it short side up on the other side. It doesn't matter whether it's short side up or long side up, just as long as you keep it consistent. What I'm going to do is place these notches together with the seam of the belt closest to the waistband. But that doesn't matter, you can sew it the other way, it's completely up to you. So when you have that in the correct position, it's a good idea to just hold it in place with a pin, and then go ahead to the other back and do exactly the same thing to the other belt piece. So what we're doing is placing it so that the body of the belt goes towards the body of the garment. So once you have those in place, now what we can do is sew the sleeve and the underarm up and the side seam in, and just incorporate that as we sew. So come to one of the sleeves, place it right sides together, and sew that underarm. For the sleeve hems, make sure that you tuck the tail of that overlocking up within the seam allowance before you turn that sleeve up. And go ahead and repeat that on the other side of your garment. take your hem piece, and we have to create a hem through each of these short edges here. So the hem that's been allowed for is 1.5 centimeters, which is 9/16 of an inch. So you have the option now of either turning this up and going to your cover stitcher and stitching this down, or what I'm going to do is overlock the edges, turn them up 1.5 centimeters, 9/16 of an inch, and flat stitch them. So I'm coming to my overlocker now, and I'm just going to complete the overlocking of the edge. So we're going to overlock the short edges right side up. Now at the same time, I also need to overlock the edge that does not have any notches on it. So if you look down one side, you'll see a side with notches cut out. We want to leave that one alone, but we need to put a hem down the long edge that's plain. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So if you have access to a cover stitcher, as I said, you could cover stitch those into position. If you don't, what I'm going to use is a 2 lines of plain stitching on my plain sewing machine. You could use a twin needle in a domestic sewing machine. Whatever you do, make sure that you change this to a ball needle so you don't get any runs or ladders in your garment, and it's a good idea to lengthen your stitch length as well. So when you're ready, turn that up the recommended seam allowance, which is 1.5 centimeters or 9/16 of an inch, and go ahead and sew in your hemline. So we want to hem on those 3 sides. You might find it easier if you press this in place first. So when you've done both ends, then do the long edge. So now we're going to sew the hem piece to the body of our garment. So what I find the easiest way is to find the center back notch of the hem piece. Just put that together and you'll find a double notch here. So this double notch here on the hem piece needs to match to the double notch at the hem here on our top. So here's the neckline of the top, and directly opposite the centre back neck you'll find a double notch. So place the double notches right sides together. And it's a good idea to just pop a pin in there to hold that in place. So when you have those double notches in the correct position, just pop a pin there within the seam allowance to hold that into place. Now, as you come along to the side seam of the bodice, if you come along the hem piece, you'll find a notch. So match that position there, so the side seam to the next notch. Then as you come along further, you'll find another notch, and that matches to the just in from the edge. So you want that 6 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch in from the center front edge of the bodice. Like that. So those positions are going to overlock together. So coming back to the center back, we'll do everything in reverse. So come to the double notch, travel along from the double notch, and you will find a notch here. So match that to the other side seam and hold that in position. And come along further. Oops. And the notch here will match to the center front edge. And this part here hangs free. We'll sew that together in a moment. So come back to your overlocker and just double check you have everything in the correct position. And when you're happy with that, we're going to overlock this into place. Now make sure you remove your pins. So we're going to start overlocking from just before the first notch. So you need to go from off to on. And we need to really make sure that those raw edges are all lined up. And take your time. So when we reach the edge position, just as we did before, we're going to overlock off. And make sure you leave a bit of a tail there. So now let's sew in the center front. So now we're going to sew the center front piece, which we previously bagged out, into our garment, and that's going to become our shawl collar. So this is the piece you need, this long rectangle that we overlocked the ends. Now if you fold it in half, at the center you will find double notches. So the easiest way to find the position for this on our garment is to start with those double notches and just mark them with a pin or another way of finding where they are easily. Then take your garment and come to the center back neck position. So here is the neckline of my garment, and in the center back neck there's 2 notches there. Now those notches match to that notch those double notches on the center front piece. So when you're ready, right sides together, hold those in place within the seam allowance with a pin. Now as we travel down this side, and it's repeated on the other side, you will find another notch here on the center front piece. So that notch there matches to that shoulder seam we created. So hold that in place with the pin as well. As we travel down further, you will find another notch here, and that notch there matches to where we sewed the hem onto the bottom of the bodice there. And as we go all the way to the bottom, the fold on our hem here should match perfectly with the hem on our garment there. So now we go back to the center back of our garment and match everything in reverse. Find the shoulder, find the notch for the bottom of the side front, and then match the hemline to the seam we created to create the collar. And when you're ready, go ahead and overlock that into place. Make sure you ease out any fullness between those points. So the last step in our process is just to tidy up the edge between the hem and the center front. So all you need to do is trim this tail of overlocking back to around an inch, 2 or 3 centimeters, and then tuck that up into the side seam, and then using your plain sewing machine, just stitch that down. And then do some quality control work and just tidy up any stray threads. So once you've done that on one side, go ahead and do that on the other. And don't forget to go and give your garment a really good press with an iron. So thanks for joining me for this sew along video. I hope you enjoy your garment, and please join me again soon for my next sew along video. And don't forget to join my Facebook pattern discussion group, where you'll be the first to be notified of new releases and sales.